Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Elizabeth. I'm Marketing and Communications Manager here at Global M, and I'm going to be coordinating this webinar today. I have Vincent, my colleague, who will be helping me with presentation and all the very important stuff in the background. I wanted to start with telling a little bit about us. So Global M is an international talent acquisition consultancy. We operate internationally and help clients internationally to recruit the best talent. We work with RPO model, which means when we work with clients, we provide them with a dedicated recruiter who manages their full cycle recruitment process, which makes this approach very integrative, very cost and time effective. And one of our values is community. That's why we love hosting offline and online events. We love to promote and nurture knowledge sharing culture. That's why we're speaking today. And today we have amazing speakers who are Global M talent partners based in South Africa and in Ghana. We have Showmona Juggernath, who is a talent partner. We have senior talent partner and team lead Ashwin Leckram. And we have our talent partner, Stephen Sange, based in Ghana. We'll also have a final word from our guest speaker, who is based in Spain, who is a very good friend to Global M. So stay tuned for his insight and to hear his story. And today we wanted to raise a very important and interesting topic for us. We wanted to talk about opportunities of hiring tech talent from African countries. Our team will talk today about Africa's tech talent landscape, opportunities and challenges of hiring talent from African countries, and smart recruitment strategies that you can implement into your business. And after that, we will have time for Q&A session. Chat is actually open now, so you can make your notes and prepare your questions or ask your questions as we go. And after that, we'll have a dedicated time where we will answer that. And I hope you will enjoy spending this hour with us. And yeah, let's get started. And I want to say welcome to our first speaker, Ashwin. Word to you.
My name is Ashwin. I'm the talent partner and team manager for Global M. I'm working out of Johannesburg, South Africa. My experience, of course, is in South Africa, selected countries into Africa itself, Europe, META region, EMEA. And as from tomorrow, I'm going to be looking at providing professional expertise into Saudi Arabia. So jumping straight into
Sorry, Ashwin, I don't think we can hear you. Can you start and try again?
Sorry, where did I break up?
No worries. You're just
Yes,
when
from the very
when you're
beginning,
about
yeah.
to start, yeah.
So introduction again.
No, we heard the introduction. Start
Okay.
with the
All right.
first slide.
Okay. Yes, absolutely. Sorry about that. Not sure what happened. Technology. So this first slide was provided by 2023 stat report, and it's merely providing a broad overview of our discussion today. So nothing technical in nature. So coming out of this report, then it points to .NET being in abundance, then followed by Android and the mostly used JavaScript frameworks. Then the most popular frameworks for Java, PHP, and Django. So there's a huge supply of talent out of Africa. However, there's a sharp drop off when it comes to the minor languages. Also, Swift and Objective-C, pure programming languages for iOS, are not in high demand in Africa. And the reason for that could be that there is an increasing popularity of cross-platform technologies. Ultimately, the report then talks, and of course, you will hear more detail. Uh, the report talks to the fact that software developers coming out of the continent of Africa are relatively undiscovered, and the continent is proving to be a fast breeding ground. Moving across to forerunners to late bloomers, the forerunners have been identified as Mauritius, South Africa, Morocco, Tunisia, and Kenya. Very high number of developers per million based on population out of these countries. Very good English coming out of Mauritius, South Africa, Kenya. And this is based on English medium schooling. And of course, there's exceptions to the rule. Or French coming out of Morocco and Tunisia. Very good proficiency. The salary levels are quite high, except for Tunisia. Again, this will be covered. The business environment or the tech business climate is very attractive in these countries. So if you're looking at risk averse approach in terms of hiring talent out of these countries and willing to pay the extra price for it, of course, it's a very good call. And by that, I mean you would get a much better return on your investment. The awakening giants have been identified as Nigeria and Egypt. And both these countries have enormous populations. And as a result of that, of course, a very large talent pool. In Nigeria, English proficiency is a plus. Salary levels in both these countries are still at a moderate level. The tech business climate is less than ideal. This talks to socio-political, economic reasons, but it is improving. So is the tech hub scene, which is growing hugely in both these countries. And these countries have been identified as where it's going to be happening in the future. The promising outsiders have been identified as Ghana, Senegal, Uganda, Rwanda, Cameroon. These group of countries have something going on for them, but it's not for the same reasons. Ghana and Uganda, substantial developer population, very good English proficiency, and moderate salary levels. Senegal and Cameroon, relatively well-developed ICT sector, French proficiency because of the French influence, moderate salary levels. However, Cameroon has been identified as a major worry when it comes to the business climate. Rwanda is a small country, but a perfect business climate, and again, moderate salary levels. The late bloomers have been identified as Ethiopia, Tanzania, Zimbabwe, Ivory Coast, and Algeria. Called the late bloomers because really it speaks to the unlocked potential in these countries. Ethiopia has a huge population, and as a result, in theory, an enormous amount of human capital. However, it still scored very low across all parameters that were used. Tanzania and Zimbabwe, relatively small but significant developer pool in very good English. On the other hand, salary levels are higher compared to other countries where the tech business climate scores are much better. Ivory Coast and Algeria, what they do have in common is a very low English proficiency, again, because of the French component. Algeria has a sizable developer pool, low salaries. Ivory Coast, the pool is significant, but relatively minor. Salaries on the higher end. However, its business climate is much better than Algeria, which is at the bottom of the range. So that is a quick intro as an overview into our discussion. I'm now going to hand you over to Showmona. Showmona?
Thank you, Ashwin. It was very insightful. So, hi, everyone. Just a quick introduction to who I am. So, my name is Showmona Juggernath, and I'm an IT talent partner here at Global M. I am a South African citizen, born and raised in this beautiful country, and I've actually graduated with a cum laude BCom honors degree in industrial and organizational psychology. So, I have about 6 years of experience within the recruitment industry, And I've been working now for about 3 years remotely from South Africa for various companies across Europe, Middle East, UK, US, as well as Asia. So I have worked with various startups as well as large corporates, and I've scaled many engineering teams across multiple industries. So that's just a quick intro into who I am. But today I will be discussing opportunities and challenges of hiring talent from the African continent. So let us first start by identifying why should you as a hiring manager consider talent in Africa. So we are going to look at the top 5 key opportunities in Africa, the first one being diverse skills. So, if you are looking to hire diverse skills within your workforce, then look no further. Africa is a vast and diverse continent with a growing population of highly skilled individuals in various fields, which includes like engineering, healthcare, technology, finance, and much more. So, as a hiring manager, your company can benefit quite greatly from accessing this talent pool and bringing in unique perspectives and expertise to your organization. And secondly, we would look at the cost. Effectiveness of hiring talent from Africa. So, if you're looking for top talent at a reasonable cost, here you're definitely going to get value for money. So, as compared to hiring talent from more developed economies, hiring professionals from Africa can be quite cost effective. And reason being is that many African countries have much lower wage levels, which does provide a competitive advantage for businesses looking to manage labor costs. So let's say that you're a hiring manager based in Germany in a startup organization that needs to hire, and you also need to manage your labor costs. So your focus would generally be within the African market, and more so because of the fact that the wage levels are much lower as compared to the wage levels in Germany itself. But obviously this actually is based on the exchange rates. But by looking at this graph here, this would give you an indication in terms of the salary ranges from medium to high for African software developers in Africa itself. And thirdly, we would then look at languages. So if your company does operate like within cross-functional teams and require employees to be quite proficient in English, as this is a universal language, well, Africa is a multilingual continent with many professionals fluent in English, French, Portuguese, Arabic, and other languages. So, this can be quite advantageous for companies with international operations and have the need to employ multilingual employees. So, if you're looking to hire skill developers that are quite proficient in English, then the countries that you should focus your attention to within Africa itself would be South Africa, Uganda, Kenya, Zimbabwe, Mauritius, Nigeria, Ghana, and Tanzania. And from looking at this graph here, you can see the percentage of candidates that you may find within each country in Africa that are quite proficient in English. Moving on to cultural diversity. So, when it comes to cultural diversity, diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace is something that's quite like actually is quite required at this stage in time. And in terms of being a hiring manager who would then need to promote this, you can do this by employing individuals from diverse cultural backgrounds, which can enhance creativity, problem solving, and innovation within an organization. African professionals do bring a rich cultural perspective to the workplace, and these 6 points here noted can help you understand how cultural diversity can benefit you as a hiring manager as well as your organization. And the last opportunity we would look at is global perspective. So, if you are looking for employees that would be committed to staying with the organization during global challenges, as we all know, currently there are many shifts happening within the economy, then African talent does often has a unique perspective in terms of understanding the global challenges and opportunities, making them quite a valuable asset for businesses with the focus of expanding into African markets and dealing with global affairs. And now that I've covered all of the opportunities, let us review some of the challenges that you may face as a hiring manager when hiring talent from Africa itself. So, first and foremost, infrastructure and connectivity. So, in some African countries, the infrastructure, including internet connectivity and reliable power supply, may not be as developed as in more developed regions. And this does present quite a challenge for remote working arrangements as well as communication with the rest of the team. And in South Africa itself, this is a common occurrence. So we have a phenomenon known as load shedding, where at times we do not have electricity for at least 2 to 4 hours at a time. However, my solution for this is, as I do work remotely from South Africa, is to invest in backup batteries, generators, and UPSs. And moving over to visa and immigration regulations. So, navigating the visa and immigration processes can be quite complex as well as time consuming for both the employer as well as the employee. So, companies should be prepared to handle these legal requirements and provide support to potential hires. And in terms of time zone and communication, so depending on the location, significant time zone differences can affect real time collaboration and communication between teams based in Africa and other parts of the world. With me being based in South Africa, I find it quite central to your European time zones. So I'm able to work quite efficiently within companies based within Europe itself. However, when it comes to clients within the US and Asia, at times it does pose as a challenge. And lastly, we would look at legal and regulatory compliance. So, different countries have varying labor laws as well as tax regulations and business practices. And adhering to these rules can be quite challenging for organizations unfamiliar with the local landscape. But luckily, there are a few organizations that I've come across recently that are able to assist with this. So, just to recap in terms of the opportunities and challenges. So, in order to successfully harness the opportunities while mitigating the challenges, businesses need to approach hiring talent from Africa with open mindedness, cultural sensitivity, and a commitment to supporting employees' growth and development. So, partnering with your local recruitment agencies, leveraging digital tools for collaboration can also facilitate the hiring process as well as improve communication across borders. But keeping in mind that most of these challenges would apply mainly if you, as a hiring manager, is looking to hire a candidate remotely from Africa. And lastly, I'm sure many of you do recognize these successful people here in terms of, for example, Nelson Mandela, Elon Musk, Charlize Theron, Trevor Noah, as well as Mark Shuttleworth. They are all from South Africa, which makes me a proud South African. And if you don't know these friendly faces, they are also from Africa with a great influence. And these are just few of the many talented Africans who are making or who have made their mark on the world. So do feel free to Google them, take their names down, and learn more about the talent from Africa. Thank you for listening. Over to you, Stephen.
Thank you so much, Shomona. I think you've touched on almost all the important things that I was about to talk about. Same for Ashwin. So I'll briefly highlight on some few things, right? Thanks, guys. So my name is Stephen Sange, and I'm currently based in Ghana. And forgive me for my video, just like Shomona said, connectivity. So I'm kind of affected. So yeah, so I started my recruitment experience in Tanzania. I spent 2 years in Tanzania, and from there, I moved to India, where I worked with Tata Consultancy Services doing global talent acquisition. And from there, I spent almost 3 years in India. And from there, I joined Global M. It's been almost 2 years, and experience has been amazing. So for today, I'll just be talking briefly about some of the things that, you need to consider if you want to venture into the African markets. And the first thing that I'll be talking about is setting the right expectations. Now, expectations is very important, and there are so many things that we need to consider if we decide that we want to check out the African market. Now, comparing the African market to some of the markets that I've worked in the Asian markets, also the US market, Europe, and also in Africa. I believe the African market is a bit better. And so, one thing that I normally advise is that you set the right expectations when it comes to the exact skills that you are looking for. When Ashwin was presented, he showcased the languages that are popular and widely used in Africa. And so you as a hiring manager, setting the right expectations in terms of the skills and then the experience that you are looking for helps to reduce the hiring stress. Now, the next point that I'll talk about when it comes to expectation is notice period. When it comes to the African market, notice period is not a challenge, compared to the other markets. To give you a clear example of what I'm talking about, I currently work with a cybersecurity client, and the client is based in the US. Now, because of how huge the client is, they've decided to build a tech hub in India. Now, one of the hiring managers decided to move a role, product security engineer role, from US to India, right? And they had already made a decision. So they had to meet me for an intake call. One thing the hiring manager didn't know was that, you looking at the US market, it's quite easier and sometimes faster to onboard candidates. But in the Indian market, it can take as long as 3 months to onboard a candidate, right? So most of the candidates in India have 3 months notice period. And it was a shock to this hiring manager because he thought he could get a candidate onboarded in a month. And that wasn't the case. So setting the right expectations when it comes to notice period is very important. And the African market is way better. Now, the next thing that I'll talk about when it comes to expectations is also maximum salary. Now, looking at the US market and then the European market, sometimes it's quite expensive when you want to fill certain roles. And so sometimes hiring managers decide that, let's fill this role probably in the African market or sometimes in the Indian market. So they come with a mindset of, providing lower than expected, salary. Once that happens, it becomes hard to get someone to fill the role. If you're looking for a top-notch candidate to fill the role. So yeah, it's true, the market is cheap, but sometimes worst case scenario, we should be open when it comes to issues of salary and then offering the best. So that's it for expectations. Let's move to flexibility. Now, when it comes to the African markets, just like my colleagues have said, it's very big, it's huge. And we have different countries in the African markets. These countries come with their own realities. So if you look at Mauritius, something that works in Mauritius might not necessarily work in South Africa. It might not work in Nigeria, Ghana, or even in Morocco, right? So in terms of flexibility, we should be open to apply different things. When Ashwin was presented, he showcased, forerunners, the big dogs, and also the emerging markets. Now, one thing that we need to do when it comes to flexibility is that our job description, and crafting our job description, we should be flexible. In our interview processes, we should also be flexible. Some of the things that the new companies that are venturing into the African market do is that they rely on what we call mobile recruitment, right? Because of late, youth and then tech talents are mostly on their phone. We tend to reach out to candidates via phone calls. If it comes to the Indian market, mostly we reach out to candidates via emails, and also for some parts of the European markets, because of GDPR issues, sometimes we do reach out to candidates via email. But when it comes to the African market, it's quite easy. You can reach out to candidates via phone, and that's kind of even be faster. And also you can use email, but phones normally makes the process faster. So in terms of flexibility, we should be open to applying different things. What works, we stick, and what doesn't work to, we move to the other thing. That's it for flexibility. Let's move to engaging the services of local stakeholders. Now, because of the huge nature of the African market, sometimes it becomes frustrating if you are hiring or you are recruiting from the African markets. And it's not as if the skills or talents are not there. It's because hiring managers don't understand the local market, right? Now, the market is structured in a way that you need recruiters who understand the realities, right? So this is where local agencies come in. I know Shamana talked about local agencies. Now, when it comes to local agencies, these guys, they've worked with different kinds of talents. They have a database. They have an idea about the process time, right? They even have an idea about the cost. So it's advisable to engage them. Now, when it comes to choosing a local agency, I think the responsibility is on us to look for someone who has worked with multiple clients, who has a great track record, and if possibly someone who has worked with the skill that we are looking for, right? And then one final advice when it comes to working with local agencies. I've had cases where hiring managers change requirements almost all the time. Sometimes they even change requirements without telling the recruiters or the local agencies, right? And that becomes hard. So they are like, oh, there is a gap, there is a gap. It's because they are changing requirements without even telling the agencies. So when it comes to that, I would say keep clear communications with the agencies and build good relationship with them. All right. That way, you as a hiring manager, you become happy. A recruiter or the agency becomes happy, and together you guys can create a very good candidate experience. And ultimately, it's gonna lead to a positive employer branding. Right. So that's it for local stakeholders. Let's move to compensation. Now, looking at the African market, just like every other market, aside the fact that candidates are looking at personal growth and development, they are all looking at satisfying their financial needs. Well, I've not seen a candidate who says, you know what, you just reduce my salary, I'll work for you. No, they're all looking for money. So financial satisfaction is very important. If you look at a market like Mauritius, it's very competitive, and because it's competitive, salaries and benefits are also very competitive. My advice is that we come to the market with a mindset of meeting the market standards. I've worked with hiring managers in the past who came to the market and they were like, you know what, we are not going to offer this amount, we want to offer a lesser amount. And then their roles were there for quite some time. They couldn't get the right candidates to fill their role. So I would advise we come to the market and not underestimate the market, but we should be ready to offer what's you know what's expected of us as a hiring manager, and also the roles that we want to fill. So now the next point that I'll be talking about is training and investment. Training and investment is very important because it's a way of helping the candidates that we recruit improve their knowledge base and also improve their job skills, right? And to give you a clear example, the current client that I work with, it's based in the US. Just like I said, it's a cybersecurity company. So the first thing that we do when we recruit candidates is that we give them months of trainings. Now, because it's a cybersecurity company, we also help them get certified, either CCNA, CCNP, and then other kind of certifications. Internally, we also have our own certification. So we help these candidates get certified. We are helping them to get grounded in the company and then provide all the necessary support. We've also subscribed or partnered with one of the leading learning platforms, so that these candidates can have access to contents that they are looking for, just so they can become better. And the return on investment is immense. I've seen a picture of a message that says that a CEO decided to ask his, a CFO asked his CEO that what happens if we invest and train our employees and then they leave us, right? And then the CEO responded and said, what happens if we don't invest in them and train and then they stay? Okay. So today you might not see the importance of investing or training our employees, but in the future, it's gonna happen. So just like every other market, African talent also, once you recruit them, giving them small training and investment also will help them grounded in your company. And the final thing that I'll be talking about is loyalty. Now, the African candidates, they can be loyal as much as you want them. You just have to treat them right, make them feel appreciated, make them feel that they are part of a family. And once that's done, they can work for you for so many years. You would there would be a point that you wish that they change company, but they are not changing because you treat them so well, So it's up to you as a hiring manager or as a company to give your best to make sure that you get the best out of these candidates that you are recruiting. So just brief highlights. I've talked about setting the right expectations, becoming flexible as a hiring manager. I've also talked about engaging the services of local stakeholders, offering right compensation, investing in training and investment. And then the final thing is loyalty. So the market is for you. Just take advantage of it. Thank you so much, guys, for listening. Yeah. Over to you, Elise.
Yeah, thanks, Stephen. Thanks, Showmona. Thanks, Ashwin. Thanks, guys, for presenting this today and sharing your valuable insights. I also wanted to present Adrian Lozano, who is our guest speaker today. You'll have bonus content. Adrian was a speaker in our offline events, and he's a good friend of Global M. So I'm very, very excited that he was able to join us today. And yeah, Adrian is a senior recruiter at a company called Andela. And I would give a word to Adrian so he can tell you a little bit about Andela and his experience since he joined this company. So yeah, over to you, Adrian.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Hi, everyone. Yes, this is Adrian from Barcelona. I'm senior recruiter at Andela, a talent marketplace where you can hire software engineers on demand. As an African-born 100% remote organization at Andela, we believe in skills and not location. And 75% of our talent network with more than 4 million engineers across 6 continents is in untapped locations like Africa and Latin America. Just a quick intro about myself. I've been doing recruitment for over 10 years. I lived in London for the first 4, and as you can tell, I couldn't get rid of the Spanish accent, but hey. I spent most of my career doing recruitment across Europe, US, and Latam, with few experiences with Africa, just like a couple of roles in Morocco in my time at Booking.com for what I can recall. That completely changed when I joined Andela about 2 years ago. And suddenly I found myself doing a lot of recruitment in Africa, especially lately as the company is focusing a lot on emerging markets, both to supply our clients, predominantly based in the US, and our own teams. So when I saw this webinar, I thought, I was certainly going to attend, but because I have a great relationship with the folks at Global M, I suggested I could perhaps either connect them with someone at Andela or just share my own experience recruiting in Africa so far, and here I am, right? Ashwin, Showmona, and Stephen have given us a great overview of the macroeconomic landscape, opportunities, and recruitment strategies for Africa, which is a bit of a tough act to follow, to be honest. But I thought I'd share just a bit of my own experience as a recruiter with the pros and rather than the cons, the areas to keep in mind when recruiting in the African continent. So start with the pros, right? The first one, highly skilled talent pool. I mean, African candidates, in my experience, especially from Nigeria, Kenya, and Egypt, where I had more success, possess excellent technical skills and are well-versed in various programming languages and technologies. They are generally enthusiastic and very responsive, often eager to seize international job opportunities, leading to quicker responses and efficient recruitment processes. If you compare them to the average European or US candidate, probably due to the difference in the number of career opportunities that they are offered in comparison. Cost effective. I mean, let's not shy away from the obvious opportunity for business here. Hiring talent from Africa can be very cost effective for European and US companies, as the cost of living and salary expectations are generally lower in the African continent. And I also want to mention that African candidates can bring a unique perspective and experience, fostering a culture of innovation and diversity within the organization. Areas to keep in mind. So internet stability. I know this sounds like an obvious one, but let me tell you, I've had my struggles here, and ensuring that candidates have reliable internet connection is crucial for seamless remote work. And I suggest you reflect that requirement in your job ads, and you ask candidates to keep the cameras on during the interviews to test that indeed they have the necessary internet connection. Researching companies. So you will probably find yourself spending more time conducting further research on some African companies that might not be as well known in international markets compared to European or US companies. So keep that in mind when you're designing your sourcing strategy, because you will need extra time there. Time zone considerations. I mean, that was already touched upon, but essentially understanding the time zone difference is very important for seamless collaboration and communication. For example, quite a few of our US clients might be preferring candidates with more overlapping working hours. However, there's organizations like Candela which embrace asynchronous work and that recognize that remote work is not a perk, and those will be better equipped to handle this challenge. So for any HR folks that are connected to this call, I wish you the best of luck with the necessary change management there. And then country restrictions and complexities. Yeah, so some countries might have restrictions or operational complexities due to security, customs, or government authorization issues. For example, in Uganda and Egypt, you need a VPN. And in Nigeria, you will need to provide ID cards once you hire tech talent. Then also there's the issue with inflation and cost of living. You need to factor this in when you're hiring in Africa. Some of these countries have gone through tremendous inflation over the past year. Just to give you some examples, 41% in Egypt and 23% in Nigeria so far for 2023. So this will, of course, significantly impact your cost to hire. And the benefits piece. So you need to think about the benefit types that you want to offer to your African talent, such as health coverage, life insurance, learning funds, and internet stipends, which they regularly get at their local companies. These benefits will make your offers more attractive to this tech talent. So, overall, recruiting tech talent from Africa has been very rewarding for me personally. And in my experience, the top 3 countries where I found success and would have consistently provided us with a pool of skilled and enthusiastic candidates have been Nigeria, Kenya, and Egypt. And look, I hope you found this useful. Obviously, thank you so much for connecting. And I think my LinkedIn profile is there shared also, so please feel free to reach out if you have any questions or just want to connect. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Adrian. And yeah, thanks everyone again for joining. We'll open our Q&A session. You can press the hand button at the bottom of the screen, so we'll open a queue, or you can write a message in the chat. If you have any questions, or maybe you want to discuss some topic, or you have anything to share from your side, any insights, we're happy to discuss it.
So, Adrian, just wondering, how long have you been now recruiting in the African continent, let's say?
About a year and a half, 2 years. Yeah, more or less.
And you said like the main thing is that the candidates are like, let's say, more enthusiastic, right? Like more motivated. Is that a good way to put it? How?
Absolutely. When it comes to obviously tech hiring, it's certainly a challenge anywhere because there's a limited pool of candidates. But other type of roles like finance, procurement, or other areas, you see the amount of applications you get, and then there's the job of having to shift and go through them all. But the response rate is, I would say, 70-90%. Anyone you call will answer. And even on LinkedIn, and that is a big difference, no? And you can generally tell that they I mean, you can never generalize, but in my experience, again, you see people more willing, people that is ready to go through all the hoops in order to get the exposure to an international organization. So, and sometimes that's the most difficult skill, and that's certainly what you cannot see on a CV, right? That someone wants to do this job, someone has that the push, and that's been my experience with African based talent.
Amazing. Yeah, it sounds really good. And Showmona, Stephen, Ashwin, you have both recruited obviously in different parts of Africa, but also outside. It's the same experience for you. Ashwin, maybe you can start.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Vincent. So it's a bit different. When a South African candidate would get a call, introduction from Adrian, knowing that it's out of country and the opportunity could present a wider perspective for their career. There's I think if we're all familiar with the Japa effect, where they are looking at exploring opportunities in the rest of the world. First and foremost, alluding to what Stephen spoke about, if the right offer in terms of REM comes across, it helps with the cost of living in the country. And yes, it's a better opportunity. With that goes things like skills development and upskilling oneself and putting oneself out there. So these candidates would respond to Adrian, get that opportunity, and do very well in spite of maybe even working remotely out of Africa. The challenge then becomes, because of the conversion rate of salary, this candidate kind of outprices himself eventually in his local country. And that becomes a challenge when there's an economic recession and he's let go, she's let go, and the person starts exploring opportunities in the local country. And of course, they're looking for either staying the same or bettering their salary. And invariably, it does not happen because the country cannot afford the sort of conversion salaries. So that becomes a problem. But in my context, dealing with South African candidates, when they hear my accent, which is relatively flat, as I've been told, and they identify it as South African, it's a little bit more challenging to get them enticed into an opportunity. I think a foreign accent does do well in this situation. But there's always these challenges, and it really comes down to what a person is looking for, and that's a stepping stone for them. Remember, of course, that we as talent partners, we are the third party merely opening up the door for the individual to meet with the hiring manager. What goes on behind that door, of course, is based on us preparing the candidate in advance. They say the right things and sing the same song, because when a candidate starts speaking different things to different people at different stages, they blow that opportunity. So to answer your question, there's a number of variables involved in this, but it comes down to the candidate. And again, going back to the topic, the African market, the African continent is still very much unexplored, especially for companies from the rest of the world. Hope that answers your question, Vincent.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Very
from
interesting.
my perspective, yes, I definitely agree with Adrian. The response rates when it comes to candidates from within the African continent itself is substantially quite high as compared to the response rate that I would generally get from candidates throughout other parts of the world. And I would assume this is because, again, Africa is an untapped market. So, candidates within that talent pool that are getting messages from recruiters or from companies are more likely to respond and want to apply and venture into these new opportunities, as well as betterment in terms of a new opportunity where there's training provided and better benefits and things as such. So yes, the response rate from my perspective has been far greater. And in terms of the countries, as Adrian mentioned, Nigeria, Ghana, Egypt, South Africa, as well as Mauritius, I did come across quite a few amazing talents from those countries when I worked with various clients recruiting, particularly in those countries, for talent.
Thanks, Showmona.
Thanks, Showmona.
We have a question in the chat. I'll read it. So, question for Ashwin and Adrian. From your recruiting experience, it will be interesting to know which countries and sectors are the most open about hiring talents from Africa.
Adrian, you go first.
Do you want to go first? Okay. I'll take it.
Yeah.
Essentially, in my experience, which is certainly briefer than Ashwin, so I'm sure he'll be able to, give more info there. But tech for sure, and US for sure. I mean, we are not the only company doing what we're doing. I think at Andela, our biggest differentiator is that we started out in Africa, and that gave us a natural advantage. We have not open anymore because we are fully remote, but we have like legacy offices in different countries that put us at a competitive advantage. But there's more companies doing what we're doing or are trying to replicate it. And yeah, I mean, if we don't give that much importance to the time difference anymore, and we work towards more of like a sync organizations, then suddenly Africa becomes one of the most competitive markets in the world. And countries like Egypt, where I saw in one of the slides that language skills for English are quite low, that's going to rapidly change. I mean, we're talking about a country, I think, with over 200 million or 300 million, I forgot now, inhabitants. That's like, what, 5 times Spain size? So it's literally, untapped talent, and that's what we need for some sectors like tech. That's my take.
Awesome. Thank you, Adrian. Well, from my experience, and speaking about the cybersecurity company that we support at the moment, head office out of USA, they've got branches practically all across the world, very strategically placed. And they also employ a select number of people out of the African continent. And these people work as contractors because there isn't a legal entity in the country. But they sing praises of these individuals. So it is open. It really is open when the opportunity is right. I've had experience where I've placed in the agricultural sector into Netherlands, where the holding company was based out of that area, and they required expertise coming from a South African perspective, experiences, and that person is doing extremely well. The last I remember, he's pulling a time of just over 6 years with a company that I know of. So I think at the end of the day, it's going to come down to international companies really exploring this market and giving people like us, for example, a heads up to say, do you have the expertise to help us find the right sort of people? And we can do that, as Liz alluded to earlier. So to answer this question, which countries and sectors are most open to hiring talent from Africa? It is open. It really is open. There's no stopgap measure to this. So yes, if you find that opportunity with the right client that wants to take your career to the next level, Adiola, by all means, explore it.
Great, amazing. Maybe someone else have some insights on this question about countries who are open. Please feel free to raise your hand or unmute yourself and talk. Okay, then we're going to go to the next question. It is from Nick Waller. Where do we think the African tech talent market will be in 5 years' time? And do you think we see more African startups because of this talent?
So if you look at the tech talent we have and startups in this country, what happens invariably, the startup creates a product solution that is so unique to the rest of the world, that comes with a different perspective, that you have very big companies that make ridiculous offers to the owners of these startups. And of course, there's no second guessing this, So people would sell these startups, stay on as a managing partner for a number of years, but retire very, very rich. So in the next 5 years, well, it is already happening. There's a number of these startups that's coming around. I actually know of an ex-Google CEO out of South Africa that's making inroads in terms of development, product as well as technology development. I have chatted to him. We have met. We have had coffee. So there's a lot happening. So in 5 years' time, and even before, I think there's going to be a massive, massive explosion coming out of the African continent.
I think adding to what Ashwin has just said. To give you a clear example, there is a company called ALX, and ALX has partnered with Mastercard Foundation, and what they are doing is that they are training software engineers in Africa, right? So they are training software engineers for free, and the goal is to train more than 50,000 software engineers, and they are doing it across the world, right? So now, looking at the current situation, when these software engineers fully passes out and they have all the skills that's needed, that's gonna be crazy for the continent, because they are going to meet up the market demands, and we are going to see a lot of startups coming up. If you look at some of the current startups that are even doing well, just like Andela, doing great, Flutterwave, these are all startups that are coming up, and it's through the tech talents that we have. So in the next 5 years, it's promising. What I have to say is that it's promising.
Thanks, Stephen. And I see that Collins raised their hand, so yeah, I'll open the queue.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Hi, everyone. I'm happy to be one of the people who have been recruited through Global M, and I've also worked with Anela before. So thanks, Nick, for inviting me here. I have a question for basically the recruiters. There's this trend that's happening for remote work that the employer needs you to be within the country or within that region in order to be able to work there, but it's still a remote job. So I'm wondering whether this is a trend that's happening, or how do clients go about this, for instance? A question to anyone.
Yeah, sure. If I may jump in there, Colin, thank you very much. Very good question. So from personal expertise, I have been working from home remotely for the longest time. And the companies that I worked for started this very early in the idea of working remotely. In a South African context, it's very conservative, and employers felt that they lost control of an individual if they didn't actually see them in person. But invariably, they realize that if they have productive workforce that works remotely, they actually have a huge cost saving. For example, if you look at the building that they would hire, so they would save on rent, electricity, telephones, and so on and so on. So I think it's a mindset thing where companies still need to understand that actually it's a win-win situation. But then it comes down to the maturity of the individual that's employed and working remotely to do his or her job as well.
To add to what Ashwin has said, so the current client that we are working with, it's a US-based company, right? So normally US companies, they prefer that you are in the country, you work there, right? So now they decided to employ the services of Global M. First of all, they had to trust Global M first before employing their services. So it starts with the idea of trust, right? And when they trusted Global M and offered the opportunity to Global M, because there were other, institutions or organizations that could have done the job better, but they trusted Global M. So it first starts with trust. And when they give the trust to Global M delivered. Right? So when they trust you, you deliver. And what kind of record do you have that they can, based on that, to trust you? So if you're looking for an opportunity, let's say in the US, and they require that, you need to be in the US. You just have to showcase what you've done, what you have. You know, if you have done something great in the past, just showcase that, hey, I've worked with this client A, B, C, D, and this is what I've done. So not necessarily have to be in that country, but you know, you can trust me based on what I've done. So just showcase what you've done, and they can give you the opportunity. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you. Probably last question. Is there any specific strategy for attracting and retaining talent in the African market? And are there any specific platforms to be used for the search?
Showmona, do you want to head that one up? Showmona?
Hi. Yeah. Okay, great. So the question here is, hold on. Is there any specific strategy for attracting talent and retaining top talent in the African market? And are there any specific platforms to be used for the searches? So to answer the first question in terms of attracting and retaining top talent in the African market, as Stephen and I both mentioned, like one would be to invest in the employees, train us, develop us, and that would help you retain your top talent within the organization, as well as look at performance appraisals. So you know, growing individuals within an organization as a whole and not just in certain elements. So that in itself will definitely retain top talent within the African market. And then in terms of platforms to be used for searches. So we generally tend to use LinkedIn. Many South Africans are also on LinkedIn in terms of a platform where you can find them. But there are also a few local platforms within the African continent that people would use to seek job opportunities. I can speak for South Africa because I'm from South Africa. And the platforms that they use here would be PNet, Indeed, Career Junction, and LinkedIn. But again, LinkedIn, I would say from a South African perspective would be more for international opportunities. That's how South Africans view it. And then for your local opportunities, you would revert to PNet and the likes of Indeed and so on. But yeah, and just I hope that answers your question, Alina.
Yeah, thanks, Showmona. And yeah, thanks everyone for participating and asking your questions. I wanted to say, if you enjoyed spending time with us, we're going to be hosting another webinar on 28th of September with our partners. It's going to be about the art of building highly successful remote teams. And it's going to be 3 different point of views of how to find talent from a recruitment agency, as we are, from how to legally hire talent in different countries, remotely, internationally, from a payroll company, and how to retain this talent in terms of mental health and environment, organizations, and everything. So yeah, check our social media and check our Eventbrite. You can register. And also, if you need any support with your recruitment services, or you want to hire talent from Africa, you need startup advice regarding your recruitment strategy or anything, feel free to contact us. If you have any comments to share, also please contact us, and we'll send you the recordings and materials from this webinar, and also a feedback type form, which will be very thankful if you can fill it in and give us your feedback. And yes, thanks for everyone for staying for the whole hour with us. We really, really appreciate it, and hope that it was very insightful for you, and you learned something. Stay tuned, yeah, and we were very, very happy to see you all. Thank you. I think we're wrapping up. Thanks, Global M team, as well.
Thank you, guys, and thank you everyone for attending once again. Bye then.
Yeah. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.